Welcome to Spoiler Piece Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Megan Kearns. My pronouns are she, her. I write for Edge Media Network. I'm a co-host of the Slashers podcast, a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and a member of Gallica, the Society of LGBTQ Entertainment Critics.
My name is Dave Riedel. I write about movies. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
And my name is Evan Crean. My pronouns are he, him. I'm co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, co-author of your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living, and co-host of the It's the Pictures podcast.
Yes, you are.
'Tis true.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, with our friend of the show, Max, who's also a member of BOFCA, too.
That's true. Yeah.
Yes. So we have a couple of horror movies that we're going to be talking about on this week's episode. But before we get into that, we want to give a huge thank you to our sponsor piece patron, Heather Sachs. Heather, thank you so much.
Thank you, Heather.
And speaking of Patreon, if you're a member, go check out this week's Patreon bonus episode. We put them out every single week. And this one is about the Oscars. We're talking about our thoughts on the show, sharing what we thought about the winners and the losers. Yeah, all that good stuff. So if you're a patron, check it out. And if you're not, consider joining for $5 a month. And so let's talk about this week. This week we have, like I said, 2 horror movies. We have The Rule of Jenny Penn, which is going to be in theaters and then on Shudder. And we have Starvaker, which is going to be on Shudder. So The Rule of Jenny Penn, Dave and I saw, and I love that you're already giggling.
Already laughing.
I love it. So this, I think, premiered, it definitely screened at Fantastic Fest. I think it premiered there. And it stars John Lithgow and Geoffrey Rush. And it's a New Zealand film that's directed by James Ashcroft. And it was written by him and Eli Kent. And let me give you the synopsis that comes from the press release. Arrogant judge Stefan Mortensen, I don't know why we need his last name, but sure, suffers a near fatal stroke, leaving him partially paralyzed and confined to a retirement home. Resistant to the staff and distant from his friendly roommate, Mortensen soon clashes with seemingly gentle resident Dave, played by Lithgow, who secretly terrorizes the home with a sadistic game called The Rule of Jenny Penn, while wielding his dementia doll as an instrument of cruelty. What begins as a childish torment quickly escalates into far more sinister and disturbing incidents. And when Mortensen's pleas to the staff go unanswered, he takes it upon himself to put an end to Creeley's reign of terror.
Yes.
Sounds grim.
Well, a lot of this
yeah.
is played for laughs, though, but dark laughs.
Yeah, I was like, I found this, you're right, but I found this very grim.
Oh, yeah. But I was like, what the... So you're watching the opening scene, Evan, and it's Geoffrey Rush, sentencing some kid toucher to 16 years in prison or something like that. And the woman, one of the victim's mothers, is saying, thank you. And he admonishes, you are culpable, madam, because you knew the risks. And it's like, okay.
He's like, you're not the victim here.
This is this kind of guy. And then he starts having tremors in his arm, and he can't quite drink properly. And he's having all the signs of I'm kind of surprised that, as arrogant as he is, he didn't think to himself, oh, I'm having a stroke. Court is adjourned, but he doesn't. So he ends up in this facility, and about 10 minutes into this movie, he's wheeled out, or he wheels himself out because he's got an electric wheelchair, because he can use his left side fine, his right side. And his right side is not fully paralyzed, but it's really diminished. Like, he can walk with a cane with difficulty, but he can walk with a cane. And so he rolls out next to this guy who's in a wheelchair, asleep, with a lit cigarette in his mouth and a flask in his hand. So
Nice.
Geoffrey Rush wakes up when Geoffrey Rush rolls by him. The guy gives him a cigarette, and then he offers him some whiskey. He's like, nah, it's all right. I'm going to go do my exercises. And Geoffrey Rush wheels, 20 feet away to go do his, try to walk. And this guy chokes on his whiskey and spits a bunch of it out in his sweater and lights himself on fire and burns to death.
Yeah.
And I was like,
God.
I was
This is
like,
grimmer already than I even thought.
well, and it's played for laughs. I mean, it's horrifying because at first it's played for laughs, and then when the horror of what's actually happens sets in, and they get closer on Jeffrey Rush's face, screaming for help, it's like, okay, this is grim. But I was sitting there watching that, going, "This movie and I are going to get along." So,
All right.
This movie is fucking crazy. I mean, it's just so nasty. And John Lithgow is like, I mean, he's like evil incarnate. He's doing a Kiwi accent. I'm not sure how I feel about that, although I didn't ever think, oh, that's really bad. I was just like, he also puts on voices a lot, so you can't quite hear, he's always talking like Ray Winstone and things like that. And then Jenny Penn has
Ray Winston is not New Zealand.
Right. And then Jenny Penn has, her voice, and he comes into Jeffrey Rush's room and terrorizes his roommate and
sexually assaults him.
Yes, that's right. And
not the first time that there will be sexual assault in this film, by the way.
Oh my God. I'm glad I didn't watch this movie. I feel like I'm just on edge hearing about it.
Well, this movie is so nuts. I mean, there were times I couldn't believe what I was watching. And the other thing that it explores, of course, is because Jeffrey Rush's character is such a kind of a, full of himself, arrogant prick, nobody believes him when he complains about John Lithgow, and his roommate, who witnesses all this stuff happening to him, won't back him up because he's terrified of John Lithgow. As it turns out, all the residents are terrified of him. And he has been there something like 50 years because he used to be an orderly at the place.
Ugh.
And they do this sort of like The Shining kind of, photos of like, the staff, 1972. And it's like, he's there and he's a very young man. And it's like, ugh. And then it turns out part of the reason he's targeting the judge is because the judge came and spoke at, I can't remember where it was, but it might have been at the facility. I can't remember because they have famous people, they have a string quartet come and do a concert, and there are activities that go on for the residents. But I was kind of surprised by the lengths to which this movie goes to just kind of be nasty, but I was kind of on board for it too. And there are a couple of the residents do meet their demise. John Lithgow lets a dementia patient out and like tells her, your family's here to visit you, and like sends her out. And there's like kind of a swamp next to the facility. So she like wanders into the swamp and drowns, which happens off screen, although he has to go get his key card from her, which happens on screen. So that's,
yeah. So you see her dead body, but you don't see her dying.
I thought he might get caught there too. I'm like, is he going to get caught? Because then I realized he knows the place so well and so inside out. He's got all the access cards. He's got his own little like hideout where he goes and like smokes cigarettes and drinks whiskey. And, he kind of presents himself as this benign dementia patient, but he is fully with it. And he's just torturing people because he can. It's this. Well, he says something to the effect of, I thought to myself, I wish I'd done something more with my life. He's like, and then I got here, and I was like, oh, here we go.
Yeah, I was gonna say that speech he gives Jeffrey Rush is whoo.
Oh boy, yeah,
it's chilling, yeah.
And it is also, now Jenny Penn doesn't actually work into it all that much. I mean, he wears this doll in his hand, but and there's a bit when Jeffrey Rush, it seems like he's not progressing in his recovery, and so one of the doctors there gives him a pamphlet with something like, puppets for dementia patients or something like that. I can't remember what it's called, but it's like, oh, so
I think that's it.
the indication is that, he's cuckoo, and Jenny Penn, no, he's just using that for sadism. So, and they do some interesting lighting through Jenny Penn's eyes and shadows on the walls and Dracula-esque and
some cinematography through the like curved mirrors and rooms. Yep.
And they and he does meet his demise, of course, but I'll let Megan tell you about that.
Oh, I was like, you let me tell the worst part.
Oh yeah, so
no, I was gonna say no. I was like, I'll do it. I got it.
Yeah, okay.
I volunteer as tribute.
Exactly.
Oh, I love the Hunger Games. So like Dave said, Stefan, Jeffrey Rush, and his roommate Sonny don't get along, and like they're talking about books, and Sonny's trying to like connect with them because he sees him reading a book, and he's like, "Oh, my daughter got me, the Tom Clancy novels," and like Jeffrey Rush wants nothing to do with it. He's like, "I know those books," and he's very snobbish about it. So anyway, fast forward as they're both being tortured and suffering. And one of the things he says, because Jeffrey Rush keeps admonishing him, like, you need to stand up. We need to unite so we can take him down. And we need to complain. He's like, you have family that come and visit you. They could do something. You could talk to them. And he's like, my granddaughter looks at me with this kind of, look, and he's indicating reverence. And he's like, I don't want to lose that. I don't want her to take pity on me. And, it's really sad. And so, but eventually, Jeffrey Rush is kind of broken down, and because they go head to head, he and Dave, John Lithgow, and so, but then he keeps like losing track of time, and he is confined to a bed, and he has finally given in. And one of the things that Dave, John Lithgow's character, keeps saying is like,
God.
He's like, kiss Jenny's asshole. And the way the puppet is, he'll like show like the back of his like hand and wrist, and he wants them to lick that part of him, which is her quote unquote asshole. And every time he is told, he said that to Jeffrey Rush, he's like, who rules here? And you're supposed to say Jenny Penn. And Jeffrey Rush is like, fuck you. I'm not talking to a puppet. And he's like, screw you. I'm not saying that. But then he finally, as a tears like streaming down his face, very, gently, he does acquiesce. And so, but eventually, Stefan and his roommate Sonny, they become friends, which is really lovely to see. And they team up and they tag team Dave because Sonny has this like hiding place, this laundry room that nobody else goes. And they lure him there, and then they tackle him together and they suffocate him and kill him.
Yeah.
All right.
The old bed sheet in the mouth routine while the other guy's holding up your legs so you can't run away.
Yes. That old routine.
Yeah. And I'm glad that not that I'm glad you're murdering people, but they were wise enough to keep the pillow over his face for a very long time. Because, horror movies, it's always like, did we actually suffocate the guy? I don't know.
Right. And then they pop up later.
Yeah. Nope. He's stone cold dead.
Yeah. They waited. It's clear he wet himself, which happens when you die. Like, it's very clear he's dead.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is a gnarly little movie. What did you like it, Megan, or not like it? Or
I can't say I liked it because it was so unpleasant to watch. But it's a well-made film, and John Lithgow. Listen, I think he is a fantastic performer, but I think that he is an exceptional villain. I always like when he's a villain. He's really great, and he goes to some strange places in villainry, and he does here. This is an unhinged, unbridled performance in the best possible ways. So it's great. I think Jeffrey Rush is really good as the arrogant protagonist. I really liked his roommate Sonny, played by Nathaniel Lees. Yeah, he was really great. I kind of wanted more of him because he was so good. But yeah, this is just an unpleasant movie. Like watching Dave sexually assault Sonny, watching him attempt to sexually not you, obviously. I think people know. Jesus. But I would hope. Yes, John Lithgow's character. Watching him attempt to sexually assault a woman who is and her boyfriend is blind, and so he can hear what's happening, but he can't see, and he's in a wheelchair, and it's just awful. Like, it's just, and thankfully Stefan stands up. He musters the strength to stand up and stop him with his cane. But it's a gross film. Like, it's gross in that it feels repugnant. Like, I felt awful watching. It's also tricky because I think this is a well-made film, and I love the performances, like especially John Lithgow's. And there's a lot of ageism happening, and it's just like the fact of dementia and aging bodies is played for repulsion, and which is just really distasteful to me, because I don't feel like we should be looking at aging that way. But I don't know. It is scary too sometimes, so I have conflicting feelings. And then also, Katie Rife had an article at Roger Ebert about how this is prime hagsploitation, even though hagsploitation is usually with older women. We're seeing it through the lens of older men, which is a really interesting concept. But yeah, so there are definitely things I like, but it just was unpleasant to watch. And like, I felt like, ugh, like I have the ick, like watching this. So yeah, I have conflicted feelings about it in summation.
Fair enough.
Yeah. But John Lithgow, fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
He's
that
really
might be
good.
worth the price of admission alone, is seeing that. I will say though, it's funny. I read some snippets of reviews where people were like, I think I saw where some people were saying like, this is the first time a horror movie has been taken place in, a nursing home or retirement home, but that's not true. We covered a movie several years ago on the show called The Manor. That was XL Carolyn's film starring Barbara Hershey that takes place in a retirement home. So, so I don't think there are many, but they do exist.
Yeah.
So, Dave, did you have any final thoughts on The Rule of Jenny Penn?
I don't know. I didn't quite get the same like ageism vibe as you did. I took it as, well, I mean, I see where you're coming from though. But I took that as all part of Dave's twisted, using that to his advantage to do the assaulting, et cetera, he is, and not necessarily we're not making fun of these people because they, her family, she thinks her family is out on the lawn and he's going to, it's more like, see how wicked this man is to take advantage of people at their most vulnerable.
Yeah.
The first time he comes across that woman and she's preparing for, Christmas, even though it's the first week of October, and he takes the doll and he knocks her on the head with it. I was just like, well, I was like, ugh.
It's just icky and mean.
Yeah.
I know. It's like, geez.
Yeah. Yeah. I was kind of surprised at this movie. I mean, you burn a guy to death in the first 10 minutes.
You know what you're getting for a movie, I guess.
At the same time, when I really started to feel like, oh, this movie is like nasty, is when Dave and Stefan have their first meeting in the dining hall, and Dave keeps kicking him in the shin under the table. Oh,
for some reason, that is such an awful, gross scene.
It's such an awful scene. Yeah. Really just like you're sitting in poor Dave, and Jeffrey Rush plays it just right. His face getting a little more, like each time. And yeah. Anyway, we can stop talking about it.
Yeah. Oh, one good thing that I will say, and Evan, you'll be delighted to know this, because I don't know if you're ever going to watch this movie, but
no.
There is. You're like, no, I'm out. There is
everything you've said. I'm just like, no, thank you.
We've spoiler pieced you out.
Yeah.
There is a cat. There is a beautiful cat that lives in the retirement home, and the cat is fine. Nothing happened. I kept seeing the cat, and I'm like, oh god, he's gonna do something terrible to the cat. Oh no, the cat, I'm gonna lose it. But no, the cat is happy, and the cat is great, and the cat like purrs and comes up to Stefan at the end of the film. So
yeah. She's like, oh, so glad that awful Dave's out of here. And now we can be pals. It's kind of like she's like, I can come out in the open now.
I know. I was like, it was clear she's been hiding, because you see her like under a table at one time, and like, she knows that he's a terrible person. And the very last shot is of the puppet Jenny Penn burning, because we got to make it full circle with the burning.
Exactly.
I thought you were gonna say like the cat came out and like peed on Dave's dead body or something.
That would have been amazing.
Yeah, that would have been great.
That would have been so gross and so amazing. Yeah. But yeah, this movie,
Gnarly,
you called
it sounds-
yeah, I was like, yeah, Dave called it gnarly earlier, and I was like, that is an apropos description.
This movie swings for the fucking fences, man.
Yes.
With a cricket bat. So, because it's New Zealand.
Very true. Very true. So yeah, so this is going to be in theaters March 7th. Oh yeah, that we're in March. I was almost for a minute, I was like, that's wrong, but no, we're in March. So yeah, it's going to be in theaters today, March 7th, and it's going to be on Shudder on March 28th. So yeah, so now let's talk about a horror film we all saw, which is going to be on Shudder. It comes out today, March 7th. And this is the horror film Starve Acre. And it's directed by Daniel Kokotajlo. And it stars Matt Smith and Morvith Clark. And let me give you the synopsis that is from the press release. It's set in 1970s rural England. Richard and Juliet's seemingly idyllic family life is thrown into turmoil when their son starts acting out of character. Uh-oh, that's never good. At Starve Acre, their remote family home, archaeologist Richard buries himself in exploring a folkloric myth that the ancient oak tree on their land is imbued with phenomenal powers. While Juliet turns to the local community to find some kind of peace, Richard obsessively digs deeper, literally. An unexpected discovery soon occupies the couple's attention, and dark and sinister forces, unwittingly allowed into the home, offer a disturbing possibility of reconnection between them.
Yep.
This movie.
Oh boy.
Yeah, this movie is something else.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you're talking about, animals in peril. This movie opens with a kid. Well, you don't see it. You see the aftermath of him stabbing out a pony's eyeballs. Like,
oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. Very
pretty
Acre
gnarly.
style.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Jack told him to do it, right? So
that's true. That's true.
And I think that's true. I think Jack did tell him to do it.
I think so. Yeah. So this movie I love that, Dave, you texted us about 30 minutes or so into the movie, and you're like, I don't have any clue what's going on. And, it was at that point too, I think it was about 30 minutes in, I'm like, I have no fucking clue what's going on in this movie.
Yeah.
And I'm like, did I fall asleep? Did I miss something? Like,
no.
Yeah.
No, you didn't.
Yeah. This movie is very, very obtuse for a large part.
Good word.
Thank you. Yeah, for a large part of the film. But yeah, so their kid is doing horrific things, and they take him to a doctor, psychologist, someone, and he's hearing voices, or a voice, and he's talking to his dad, and his dad's trying to it's clear he knows what he's talking about, but there's a lot of mystery around what's happening as for us, the audience. And yeah, and then Juliet is like in the field in front of the house, and she's staring at something, and then the kid is having some kind of spell, seizure, something, attack.
Severe asthma, right?
Asthma, that's it. Thank you. Yeah, severe asthma attack. And then he dies. And so her sister comes to help out and console her and all of that. So they're like repainting the room, and, she's helping her out, and she doesn't really want to talk to Richard, and he's busy, reading old books and digging into shit.
His dad's office, because this countryside home is his parents' former home that they've moved to somewhat recently to get away from some bad situation it seemed to happen when they were living in the city.
Yes.
They allude to the son having done some things that were scary.
And they thought the fresh air would do him good or something. Yeah. And then Richard comes upon these bones, this skeleton of what looks kind of lupine, kind of like a rabbit. And he's telling a colleague that there's a fungus or something on it, and he's investigating. But then he's also been reading this book that was at his dad's about conjuring and resuscitation and that kind of, thing. And and then we see it's no longer a skeleton, it's a rabbit, a weird rabbit, very caveat style, but not a toy.
Right. So after he finds the bones, he he digs them up and polishes them and stuff, and then they're sitting in this box, and then he notices they're starting to regrow flesh.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And some really good practical effects there.
Yeah,
he tries to show it to the colleague. The colleague just sees the bones, and then he brings it home again, and it's growing flesh to the point it just becomes a rabbit again, or a hare again. You see the heart start beating, and you see the muscles forming, and then it's just alive, and he's taking care of it inside the house, but keeping himself holed up in a room until his wife is like, "What the fuck, dude?" Why aren't you letting me in this room? She barges in, then sees it, and then they kind of bond over this thing. Oh, we got this little thing. We're gonna take care of it, and they bring it outside and set it free because they don't want it to be inside the house. And then I feel like after that, things just kind of start to spiral even more. They reconnect, but things are just getting weirder and weirder.
Yeah, and then the sister has her dog in her hands, and then she says that the rabbit tried to take the dog out of her arm and
she mauled her arm.
Yeah, and she's got a wound, and then she drives away and runs, and she's at the payphone, but the payphone doesn't work, and she runs into her sister's father-in-law, and he's like, "Oh, your sister should consider herself lucky. She's been chosen," and oh God. And and then back at the house, Richard is showing his colleague who showed up, the roots and these extensive roots. And he's like, "I can't believe these have been preserved. This is incredible. You have to tell the school so you can get funding for this and so on and so forth for your research." And meanwhile, the rabbit is in the house, and Juliet is, treating it. She's holding it like a baby, and she's putting it in the crib, in the cradle like a baby, and getting very weird and very, very weird. And then the colleague, is standing with an axe or a shovel. I think it's an axe. And he's screaming, and he's like, "I've come for him. I've come for him." And then,
but that's just a hallucination.
And then, and Juliet kills him. And then this movie, and then,
its mythology is pretty murky, but the tree they talk about as it was a meeting spot, and all of these things transpired, and they call it something like the nature's womb or something like that.
Yes.
And it's supposed to be a gateway to the spirit world. And so, but to open it up, you need to sacrifice to it. And so when Richard was growing up, his father was trying to use him as a offering to the, I don't even know, the spirits or whatever, but supposedly you learn that his father hated him, so the spirits weren't going to take him because they would only take a son who is beloved by the father, so that's why their son died. And then then she kills the work colleague, so they need 3 bodies to sacrifice or something like that to complete the circle or some shit like that. So they end up killing her sister.
Whacking her in the back of the head with a hammer while she's looking in the crib.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is a very nasty convulsions, which would happen, of course, with her spasms. And then she dies, and then the bunny, the hare, she takes out her breast and starts breastfeeding the rabbit.
This is all after she says, by the way, that she more or less knew that their son was dying in that instant and was like, "Oh, hands off."
Right. Because we might be better off. Yeah. So
that, I mean, they need 3 sacrifices. So they got the guy, the sister, and is the kid the first one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that being said, though, this movie is kind of I finally, by the end of it, I put it together and felt like, okay, well, I can sort of this sort of coheres. But at the same time, it's kind of like, does it really? I mean, this is all pretty. This is kind of literally the definition of just like, and then what if this happened? You know what I mean? In screenwriting.
Yeah, it feels very meandering. And I think, I spent large portions of this movie wondering where it was going. And by the time it got to the end, like you said, I think you can it makes a kind of sense. I don't think it makes the most sense, but it just really, we wasted all of this. I sat here throughout this like incredibly slow meandering movie. And this is what I've come to at the end. It didn't feel like the kind of explosive finish that I was kind of thinking would be coming for such a slow burn.
Yeah.
Like we didn't get like Hereditary levels of bonkers or Midsummer. It was starting to feel to me at the very beginning like, oh, maybe this is going to try and like be folk horror in the vein of something like Wicker Man or Midsummer or something. We're like really going to lean into the creepy like atmospheric elements because they're like spending all this time like showing the countryside and the remoteness of it. And I thought, okay, we're like really going to lean into that. No, we just got this like story about a dead kid that you don't even really feel that bad about because he was like a crazy, he was a murderous kind of child or like
he's an animal abuser.
So that kind of like takes some of the, oomph out of the fact that they lose their child. And then you also have this like crumbling marriage where it just seems like he is just off in his own fucking world, doesn't give a shit about her. And she's losing her mind.
Old world too.
Yeah. She's losing her mind and spiraling. And then, like having fucking like weird seance lady come in.
Oh God.
to like host a seance in their house. And then, but I mean, it makes more sense once you find out like she's like trying to fucking conjure this spirit world into existence too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, what the fuck is this movie? I don't know.
I mean, here's the thing. I wasn't bored by this, but I never need to see it again. So
I was bored.
Well, this as Megan, I'm sure, understands, it's not long, but nothing really happens in this movie. So
that's correct.
I was kind of content with the sidelong glances and the meandering, like, ooh, I'm so sad about our son, kind of stuff. I was really hoping that the rabbit, though, I mean, the rabbit is evil, but I was really hoping that, you would see some evil rabbit shit, like you'd see it ripping up the sister's arm.
Right, right.
And that just says to me, sorry, didn't have the budget to make the puppet like really puppety,
Mm-hmm,
so
Mm-hmm.
Because as good as the reanimation scene looks, the rest of the time, the rabbit more or less looks like a toy rabbit, or like a stuffed rabbit or reasonable better than the Clint Eastwood baby in the movie about the sniper, but
oh my God,
still,
American Sniper.
American Sniper. Well, what did you think, Megan? Yeah. Oh
yeah, I kind of fall somewhere in the middle where I wasn't bored, but this is a very, very slow pace.
Slow burn.
It's a bit too slow. And I think like I like the idea of keeping the audience at bay and keeping us guessing like what is actually going on and kind of just dropping us in. I like that. Unfortunately, I don't think it's doing enough early enough on. Like I feel like it does too much exposition almost in the back half, like the back end, where it's like I wish it had kind of like trickled it out a little bit more. And I also felt like you, Evan, like there was going to be kind of this propulsive, explosive finale.
Mm-hmm.
And there wasn't, and that's okay. There doesn't have to be, but it does feel like it's ramping up for something that never really comes.
Yeah.
Having said that, though, I was kind of here for these really eerie, weirdo vibes. Like,
and it gets real weird at the end.
Yeah.
I mean, as weird as it sounds for a woman to pull her breast out and to be nursing this demon rabbit.
Yes. Yes. I wish it was, but I also, like you, Dave, I kind of wish it was more demonic. And then, you have the thought, like, well, maybe it's not a demon rabbit. Maybe everyone has lost their minds. Like, maybe the rabbit is fine. But then the rabbit starts nursing. So it's like, no, not everything is fine, clearly. But, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in a way, if you remember, Jenny Penn, which we were just talking about a few minutes ago, there's that whole bit when Jeffrey Rush is having the physical therapy and the occupational therapy, and in his mind, he's drawing the face of a clock perfectly.
Oh my God, that scene.
Yeah, and then he gives it to the person doing the instruction, and it's clock-ish, but it's the numbers that are in the wrong. Like, it's somebody who doesn't have control of their motor functions trying to write.
Exactly.
Also, because he's not left-handed, but and that's what the side he has.
Right.
But in that way, it reminds me of Starvacre here, where you've got, is there really a rabbit? Because, she heard the voice yelling, I've come for him. But the guy didn't do that at all, because when she goes out to stab him to death, he's just talking to the husband. He's like, man, there's money in this shit,
Yeah, exactly.
And Richard, the husband, doesn't even really come around until the very end, because he's despondent that his wife has stabbed his colleague.
Yeah.
But then 10 minutes later, he's like, yeah, all right, I'll hit your sister in the head with a claw hammer.
I know. Like, it's such a
to the baby.
Right? Like, it's such a weird turn. It's just so strange. I don't know. But I was kind of here for it. But also, I don't know. I feel like, and I know this is based on a novel, and I'm kind of curious about the novel. Like, I almost want to read it to learn more, because I feel like it's not written well enough where we get real insight into what's going on. I don't know.
I read some Reddit about the novel, because I was like, how is this a novel? And apparently the novel is not dissimilar to the book in that it leaves a lot of things vague about why it's happening, but it's really, but everyone kind of agrees that it drills down more on the going crazy in your grief.
Okay.
So, but I'm not really sure I'd want to read that.
I might.
Yeah.
I like some weird shit. I like weird books, so I might. But yeah, but I love Morveth Clark. I think she is so fantastic in Rose Glasses, Saint Maud, which is such an incredible horror film that you and I saw, Evan. And it's so good. And I like Matt Clark. He's a really good actor too. Matt Smith, not Matt Clark. Matt Smith. I like him a lot. So yeah, I liked the vibes, and I liked the aesthetic, and I liked the creep factor, and how eerie this is. But I think it, for me, needed, not needed, but I wish it had a little bit more, like a little more something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely lacking. I mean, you've got 60 minutes of languid,
languid. Perfect description.
Thank you. Languid, morose vibes, I guess.
Yes.
I mean, I will say this movie is a vibe. It has a vibe from beginning to end.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everything in this is very purposeful. But I think the screenplay, to Megan's point and yours, Evan, is just a little too opaque for its own good. You know?
Yes.
So I don't think it's badly done, but I think it's done incorrectly, I think is what I would say.
Yeah. I think it just needs some like tweaks, maybe.
Yeah. It just needs, we all know how I feel about when you finally reveal the evil or the villain or whatever in horror movies. It's like, well, now it's not scary anymore because now I know what it is. But like, this goes almost too much the other way of being like, we're not going to explain this shit. It
needs more of a middle, I think. I think this movie is missing a middle, because it had my attention at the very beginning. At the end, I was just kind of like, oh my God, this is so bonkers. But I just didn't feel like there was a connective tissue between that and that.
Bonkers is the theme this week, everybody.
It really is. It really is.
Gnarly and bonkers.
Yeah. Maybe that's the issue, is that it doesn't, because like in a possession film, sometimes it happens slowly, but you can have like a turn of character very rapidly. But in another case, like when someone's sanity is eroding, or in any other kind of horror film too, I feel like you need, like, if a character is going to have this turn, like such a drastic change in behavior, then it needs to feel earned. Like you need to have some time, and in some of the cases, it feels like it just turns on a dime. So,
yeah.
yeah.
And I think if you're gonna do a folk horror story and it's gonna be some type of mythology, I think you need to be a little bit more you need to explain a little bit more than this movie does. It leaves a lot of stuff just kind of vague.
Yeah, well, I think that what would have been helpful is to bring up some of the stuff that Richard finds in his dad's office and kind of
like
tease that out over the course of the
Yes,
movie.
yes, yes.
Investigative. Yeah, I think
Mhm.
that would have definitely made the middle feel a little more.
Yeah. As it
Sturdy.
happens, it's all in like the last 40 minutes or so. And it's like, we're just
Right.
getting to this now? I mean, you've been talking about this
Right.
fucking oak tree the whole goddamn time.
Right. Yeah. Well, like it would have been interesting to see if like why he even decided to dig in that part of the yard in the first place. Like, I don't know if he found some like weird stone formation, was like, oh, this is weird, I'm gonna start digging here. You know what I mean? Like we just see he's just digging in some random corner of the yard. So I think some of those pieces might have made it more interesting and made it come together.
And I just find that there's like strange character motivation because, and I guess, it's a weird movie where they're losing their minds. But when Richard is talking to Juliet about the whole thing about his dad and how his father would like tie his hands up and put him outside and how he hated him, and that whole part, which is really, really sad. And he talks about, his difficulties coming back here. Even though he's saying that, I'm still like, but I know what you're explaining, but why did you come here? Like, it still doesn't, even though I'm hearing it, it still doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Like, why would you return?
Let's return to the home of my abuse and try to raise our son with a better childhood.
Right. Like that doesn't, and like if the father had died, that would maybe make sense or something, but no, he's still running around. Like, so it made no sense.
No, I thought the neighbor was just the neighbor. I didn't think that was the father.
Oh, I thought that
Like
was the
Gordon?
father.
I thought he was like the gardener or something.
Oh God. Okay.
No, he's just the next door neighbor.
Okay, that's my bad then.
Next
Never
door
mind.
neighbor. Okay.
Yeah.
No, but it's still. I mean, your kind of thought process still holds up, though.
Well, thank you.
No, it does.
It does. Yeah, because you would think, okay, and also like him just kind of sifting through these, you'd think he would be more disturbed learning the origins of some of these things that happened to him that maybe he didn't quite understand as a kid. Like, oh, I was like tied up and standing in my underwear in the middle of the field in all hours of the day until like my fingers turned blue or something, like.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. This is really twisted.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he does say something about like, oh, I was sacrificed or something like that. But there's no real emotion. It's very strange.
Yeah. I don't want to say that Matt Clark, I don't want to say his performance is one note because that's not fair. It's a good performance, but he's trying to draw a lot. He's trying to get blood from a stone, I guess what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And the other thing I think that would have helped out is as far as the let's go back to the home where I was abused and try to give our child a better childhood than I had. They had to leave. It's just like, why don't we have just a line or two of dialogue in here? It's like, well, we can't afford anything else. That's why we're back here.
Yes. Thank you. Exactly. And then that would have been like, oh, okay. That explains. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then that would also explain why he's being so weird because he's so tormented about being back. Which I guess could be. But anyway,
Why couldn't you be Caveat? God damn it.
Oh, Caveat's so good.
I thought about watching that again. And so I was like, yeah, I'll watch Caveat again. And then I kind of listened to part of our conversation and I was like, nope, not going to watch it again. I had forgotten just how creepy it is.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. But everybody I tell about the other one that I can't remember, Oddity, everyone's like, ooh, that sounds good. I'm like,
Oddity
it
is good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very glad that I saw it on a lot of like horror best of lists because it's great.
Yeah. I don't know, Megan, would you call it elevated horror?
Oh my God.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I know. You're just trying to get me because you know I hate the. Oh
yeah,
my God.
I don't like that phrase either. It's just
no, it's
so
terrible.
absurd. Yeah.
If you're gonna use it, I feel like we need to use it across the board for all films.
Right.
Yeah, elevated drama.
Dramas, exactly. Yeah,
Elevated buddy
comedies.
cop movie.
Yeah, that's right.
exactly. But yeah, it's just so stupid. And it makes me, just infuriates me. Anyway, but back to this. Do we have any final thoughts on Starvaker?
Nah.
Nope.
Yeah.
I did want to cuddle that weird demonic bunny, though. Not gonna lie.
Really?
I did. I'm a weirdo.
That thing to me, I was just like, well, first of all, you look like you should be, at I don't remember what the big toy store is that used to be in New York on like
FAO Schwartz.
FAO Schwartz, but a less creepy version. I also had to wind it back that scene where she's looking in the rabbit's eye and she sees her reflection, but it took me like three scroll backs to be like, oh, that's her reflection, because I thought at first she was seeing her kid in the rabbit's eye
or something else.
I thought so too. Yeah.
But then I was like, no, her hair is parted on the same way, and no, that's her reflection. Okay, what's the fucking point of this again? Okay, moving on.
Just to be creepy. All right, so let's do a recap. The Rule of Jenny Penn. Dave, would you recommend it?
I mean, I would, but
I love that.
I think that you've got to be in the mood for some horrific shit, but sort of presented in a just like, hey, this is just happening kind of way,
Yeah, I feel similarly. Like, I feel like if I were, if I was I guess I am in conversation. We're talking to all of you. But, if I was talking to someone in person, I'd be like, listen, you got to know what you're in for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like you need to spoil some things in order to give that caveat of a recommendation. But yeah, I think the performances alone are really great. And something I had forgotten to say about this filmmaker is that I saw his first film, Coming Home in the Dark or Coming Home from the Dark, and that's a mean movie too.
Oh, fuck that movie. This is the same filmmakers that did that movie. Fuck that movie. That is a mean movie. Oh.
Is it mean like Speak No Evil? The Danish Speak No Evil?
Yes. It is mean like that.
Yes, it is mean like that.
Oh boy. Because I was kind of like interested in it, reading the description.
Yeah. I liked it, at least from what I remember. I liked it, but maybe I need to rewatch it.
Oh boy.
I'm sorry I mentioned it, Evan.
That's all right. I just remember seeing that. It was a Sundance movie that I was just like, oh my God.
Wait, not that. No, not that movie. Are you thinking of the movie with the Roma? That's like a vampire movie. It's not that movie.
But I hate that movie too.
Oh, okay. Then we are talking about the same movie. Okay, because I was thinking of that movie because they changed the name of that movie, so that's why I was like, wait, is it that? But yeah. Anyway. Well, sorry I derailed and brought up that movie.
Oh, no
anyway. Okay, so let's talk about Starvaker. Would we recommend it?
No.
I don't think so. I mean, this is truly a your mileage will vary kind of movie. Mm-hmm. But I think that the mythology is so muddled that it's not really, I'm not sure how much brain power you want to spend on it.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, and I like the aesthetics of this. I like the eeriness and I like the cast. But yeah, it was like I kind of wanted more from it. So I feel kind of similarly. All right. Well, we want to give a huge thank you to our editor, Otto Clamor. Otto, thank you so much for making us sound so great.
Thank you, Otto.
Thanks, Otto.
You can find Spoiler Piece Theater anywhere you get podcasts. You can also find us at our website, spoilerpiece.com or spoilerpiece.libsyn.com. You can also follow us all over social media. We're at Spoiler Piece on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky, Threads. So come follow us. Come say hello. You can email us, spoilerpiece@gmail.com, or you can give us a call
at 862-21-PEACE.
Let us know. What did you think of these movies? We'd love to hear your thoughts. We always do. We always love to hear your questions and, on any topic. And if you like the show, please consider rating and reviewing us. That really helps us get the word out. You can go to ratethispodcast.com/spoilerpiece. Take you to your preferred platform of choice. You can also just rate us directly on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Helps us out a lot. And if you like the show, you can also go to our website, and that will take you to our TeePublic store, where you can get all kinds of fun merch and can show, how much you love us and all of that good stuff. And yeah. And then if you really, really like the show and you're not already a patron, and thank you if you are, consider joining. For $5 a month, you get access to weekly bonus episodes and you get to vote in monthly polls. And because we didn't have a poll last month, we're going to have 2 this month. So that's super exciting. So it'd be a good time to join. And this week for our bonus episode, we talked about the Oscars and shared our thoughts on that. So if you can't get enough of us, you get even more of us. Get hundreds of back cataloged episodes of our bonus episodes, as well as new ones each week. And yeah, my name is Megan Kearns. I write for Edge Media Network. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and a member of Gallica. I'm also a co-host of the Slashers podcast. You can follow me on Blue Sky and Twitter at Opinion S World, or on Instagram and Letterboxd at The Opinion S.
My name is Dave Riedel, member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association. And if you want to follow me on the social medias, I'm Dave Sees Movies I changed my name on Blue Sky. Yeah, it's David Riedel now, because I was like, there's a lot of David Riedels in the world. I should fucking take that. So I did. Everywhere else, it's Dave Sees Movies. Letterboxd, Instagram. I don't have the tweets anymore. Threads. And there you go.
My name is Evan Crean. I'm co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, co-author of Your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living, and co-host of the It's the Pictures podcast. You can follow me on social media as a Real Recon, and that's real as in film reel.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.